It's podcadzo.
I'm gonna crack
Feels
this
good
open.
to know that my
Silence, please. What in the hell is in your bottle? There. What'd you make? What concoction did you make?
the suspicious looking
It's
liquid.
very suspicious.
It's a Prime packet.
Oh right, you mentioned him. Oh
That
my
I-
gosh.
Not really. I don't really like it.
What does this taste
I don't
like?
think I'm gonna drink the rest of it. This is
Pri-
my first time trying one. I got it for free, and I don't like the way it tastes.
It's Prime the Logan Paul energy drink,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a powdered mix that you got.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah, it doesn't taste good.
What is it here? Have a sip of my Celsius. What does that taste like?
Are you sure?
Yeah, of course.
You're not like a weird oh, you're gross. You got
No,
germs.
dude.
I will let it be known I have not brushed my teeth since 2014. It's a personal
That's fine, dude.
choice.
It's all the good bacteria is living in your mouth now and kills all the bad bacteria.
Oh,
That's how it
it's
works.
so good.
It's really good. What does it taste
So
like though? It tastes like an old school candy kind of.
It kind of to me is like a coconut berry thing.
I'm thinking Skittles, rainbow Skittles. That's what it
Rainbow
tastes like.
Skittles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely Skittles. I like Celsius. I've
Celsius
been
is
drinking
delicious.
a lot of them lately.
Yeah, and they're not that bad for you, really.
Well, supposedly they're good for you if this can be trusted at all.
I mean, no, like it says on Monster cans that those are good for you.
I know. The Monster, as soon as you have a sip, you're like, oh my god,
My
this is
heart
killing
hurts.
me. Yeah.
But it's so good though. Man, I wish I had a Monster right now.
Mhm. Classic Monster's good. I drank that one last week. That was
Think
horrible.
if I texted Benson and asked him to bring me a drink, he would.
Yeah, for sure. Such a sweet boy.
Yeah, he probably would. I'm gonna do it.
Sorry, I feel bad for not picking up a Celsius. I
Yeah,
should've.
you're a piece of shit, honestly.
Next week.
Nah,
We should just buy
I
a
doubt
pack
it.
for the stew.
We should, because no one's really drinking beer right now.
Yeah, I haven't been crushing beers on the pod. I haven't been crushing beers that much
In general.
in general. The sober April I did is kind of carried over. I mean, I've been drinking a little bit since then, but way less.
You'd be proud of me. I've been drinking a little bit too.
I
I've
am
had
proud
like
of you.
one beer a week for the last 2 or 3.
You're in the pocket.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
I know. And I just never want to drink beer on the podcast because then I feel like I get really stupid. Like I instantly can't really talk as good or think as good as soon as I drink alcohol, which is just because I don't drink that much, so my tolerance is super low. Not to flex on y'all. I have other very unhealthy
yeah.
lifestyle choices
Yeah.
that replace alcohol.
Juliana
so.
has some tolerances that are higher than you could ever imagine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to introduce today's fucking
Well, I
stupid
can
ass
introduce.
topic.
Yes, I can introduce, and it's not a stupid ass
I'm
topic.
honestly, hand to God, I'm just going to put my microphone on the ground.
All right, this is a call-in solo cast with an audience member, a very harsh, criticizing audience member. Today on Podcadzo, I have a filter for that. I have an AI filter for that to filter you out. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have an AI to just take me out?
I do. It's called not putting this camera in the cut at all, and me starting
Wow, but you'll
right
still be able to hear me.
now. So today on Podcadzo, we're talking about something that I have wanted to talk about since the beginning, but it's a topic that I've been kind of nervous to talk about because it is so near and dear to me that I really want to knock it out of the park. And each week I've just kind of put it off because I was like, I need to do more preparation on this before I'm ready. I didn't do more preparation on it. I don't feel as ready as I maybe should, but I was thinking about it, and I know so much about this band, and I can talk about the music for so long that I really don't need to prepare. That band, our dear listeners, my dear listeners, is The Smiths.
Boo!
Julian, I'm going to need you to have your microphone.
Okay. Boo.
So, why do you have this
Honestly, okay.
attitude towards The Smiths?
Let me just lay it all out on the table right now. To be honest with you, most of the reason why I have such a strong opinion about the Smiths right now and on Podcadzo is because you like them, I really just want to. I really just don't want you to like them.
Mm-hmm.
But more than that, And to be honest, it's mostly just me being a bitch. I just think Morrissey's a piece of shit. And it's like really hard for me to listen to his music, past or present. And this, so
You can't separate the art from the artist.
I can't in some cases. I can. This is going to sound bad. You're going to need to do some bleeps here probably for YouTube. Like if they're or something, like I can usually overlook it.
Like R. Kelly. You're still a big R. Kelly fan.
Not really R. Kelly, but like, I mean, fuck. Like Jesse Lacey, brand new. He got Me Too'd. Win Butler from Arcade Fire got Me Too'd.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of alt indie fucking weirdos too that do that shit. And I still listen to brand new. Still listen to Arcade Fire. But yeah, like Morrissey's such a piece of shit, and he has fucked over his own fan base like so many times in the recent years, and kind of like tarnished his own legacy in a bad way. That it just turns me off from the whole thing completely. And then to just take it a step further back than that, when I was growing up, my dad was a huge Smiths fan, still is. There was a lot of Smiths being played, also a lot of just like Smiths references and shit. And it never really grabbed me that much when I was a kid. There's like this generational thing for me where I was like, if it sounded old, if it sounded like outdated, if it sounded like it was from the 80s, I was just like discounting it because of its lack of ability to sound modern, essentially. I just like shit that sounded brand new, and I like when the ideas were like pretty new as well. And the Smiths is just like not that. It's like super duper 80s.
It's as 80s as it gets.
So coming back around to it older now, like I kind of enjoy it a little bit more. I don't love it, but I also can't get over the fact that I don't like Morrissey. And then final thing I'll say, growing up as a kid, I was a huge fan of Morrissey's solo stuff. Like all of his solo albums pretty much leading up to what's the teenager one? The one with the teenager song on it? Look up his discography.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially I really, really liked all his solo albums up to a point, and then they just kind of lost me because, again, his albums, the themes of his albums started being about shitty shit too, like about how much the youth sucks.
Bonfire of Teenagers?
Yes.
Yeah.
That album's fucking terrible.
He's had some... have you listened to any like super recent Morrissey?
I have, and it's not all bad, but I will say none of it, in my opinion, is as good as that like 2000s prime era of solo Morrissey.
Oh, 2000s was your prime era?
Like maybe early 2010s, like Ringleader of the Tormentors.
That was 06.
Yeah, 2000s.
Yeah. That's funny because I'm so stuck in the 90s Morrissey still. Like Kill Uncle. I love that album.
Yeah, like his...
And Viva Hate. I've cited that as well.
Yeah, Viva Hate is super, super good too.
Mm-hmm.
And his solo shit is just like super out there and very experimental and creative. Up to a point. Like Teenage Bonfire is not that at all. It's very basic and derived of his... Trying to be derived of his older shit, but not really doesn't get there. Yeah, I just think Morrissey's ruined his reputation for me, and I attach that to the Smiths and shit.
He is a difficult figure. We'll come back to that.
Oh, also, just for the record, I am going to try to derail you.
Yes.
Every
You've already
chance
been
I
pretty
get.
successful. I struggled with that the introduction.
Oh, I never texted Benson about getting me a Celsius.
So, yeah, let's come back to Morrissey in a second. I think I've talked about my introduction to the Smiths before on the pod. I'll do so briefly right now, again. I was not even aware of a band called the Smiths until I was probably 15 years of age. One night I was at home. I was watching Jules Holland on the Palladium channel on DirecTV. My parents had that channel. I loved it. They'd always play Jules Holland. I was really getting into the guitar at that point. Like, I'd been playing guitar for a while, but like when I was 14, 15, it like became my life.
It was getting serious.
It was getting serious, super serial.
So, like, what turned on at like age 14, 15, where it was like suddenly... Was it just
I
because
can't
you were
really say.
discovering more music?
Yeah, more music, and
Because I think it was like the same age for me where like I had been playing for a while, but then at around 14, 15, especially when you see like people around you really starting to do it too, you're like,
that was
fuck,
that
I'm
was
gonna
big
do
for me
this.
is like like coming to Rocky and meeting people who were like actually good at music. Like, oh shit, like I could be doing that too.
Yeah.
I should be doing that.
I
So
mean,
that
you
lit
were
a
in
fire
Savage
under me.
Cabbage like before I was part of Blue Taboo, so I like was jealous of you for
No.
a bit. I was like, fuck this asshole. I didn't even know you played guitar. And then you're just like, yeah, I play guitar, kind of. And then like I saw you guys play, and I was just like, damn it, they're like years ahead of me. Like,
No. That's kind of you to say, but we were not years ahead of you. Yeah, I
we're in the bedroom department. You
not
guys
much
were
has
getting
changed
the
there.
action. No one wants to fucking give an over the pants hand job to a fucking dude that's not in a mediocre high school band.
I had 0 girls in high school. Julia was like my first girlfriend, and I've stayed with her since. Anyways, I was lucky that in high school, like I did have a pretty good bass on the guitar, just because like, you know, my dad played and I'd been like practicing scales and chords since I was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
But you know, when you're a kid,
Was it something that your dad was like, you're gonna do this? Or did
He-
he
he-
just
no,
like
he-
give you the option?
he gave me the option. I mean, he was never like forceful, like he never forced me, but he definitely like encouraged me, and he's like, you should be playing guitar, you should practice, like you're not gonna regret playing guitar. But you know, when you're
He
that
was
young,
super right
it's-
about that.
Yeah, definitely. When you're young, it's like all about like I was into sports and I just wanted to like go outside and mess around with my friends. It was hard to sit down and like practice the guitar.
Focus, yeah.
But yeah, so I had a good basis a base to build off of when I got like really into it. So when I got into high school, I like progressed pretty quickly, and that was, you know, such a cool time because like each day I was seeing improvements and like learning about new music. and-
Yeah, that's when you're like pursuing getting better actively, you know?
yeah, totally.
That time in at least my life and your life too.
Yeah, I remember it's like every day I couldn't wait to come home and just play guitar and mess around.
And touch your sick little peen.
Jesus. That was the name of my Stratocaster that I had in high school. Speaking of guitars, I started to get like it not only into playing guitar, but like started to learn like different kinds of guitars and stuff. And the first one I got obsessed with was Fender Jaguars. I saw a picture of a Jaguar. I was like, that is the coolest looking guitar I've ever seen. I want to play one. So I turned on Jules Holland that one night, and as soon as I turned it on, it cuts to a fella playing a very cool Jaguar. And I was watching with my dad.
And who was that fella?
It was none other than JM himself.
Wow.
Mr.
And
Mars.
what was he playing in? Was he just doing
His
solo
solo.
stuff?
Yeah, his solo group. Have you listened to any Johnny Marr
Yeah,
solo
Johnny
music?
Marr
Johnny
solo
Marr
stuff is really
great.
good.
I'm
Yeah.
seeing him in September. I'm very
Oh,
excited
where?
for it. Paramount in
Oh,
Denver,
weird.
which is very strange. But
yeah, thought I was soon like at least like Mission Ballroom.
I know. Yeah, Paramount's it's him and James.
I mean, the Paramount is amazing. I love the Paramount.
I've never seen. I've only seen comedy there. I haven't seen
Really?
a concert.
I saw Tom York at the Paramount.
Oh, that's rad.
Mm-hmm.
My dad saw Bob Dylan there.
That
one
would
night,
be
which
the
I'm
perfect
jealous
venue
of.
for
I
something
drove
like that.
him and his drunk ass friends to Denver so they could see Bob Dylan. I went to the Cheesecake Factory.
Damn, it's crazy, honestly, that Bob Dylan was still playing shows when you're old enough to drive a car.
Yeah, I was 18. I remember.
Man,
They said the show wasn't that great actually.
I'm sure probably watching a dude read lyrics off of a fucking prompter isn't that entertaining.
Just like not even trying to hide the fact that he's just doing it for the
Can't
money.
do it, yeah.
Anyways, yeah, so I saw him just I was like, Dad, check it out. He's playing a Jaguar. That's really cool. And he's like, oh yeah, that's Johnny Marr. Like that's like his Jaguar. That's his signature Jaguar. And I was like, oh, Johnny Marr. And he's like, yeah, he was in this band called The Smiths. And so I immediately started looking up Johnny Marr.
We need
and the
to
Smiths.
create an alert for when you double tell stories on the podcast.
I gave the warning ahead of time that I've told
I know,
the story.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like, it needs to be like an alarm, like
yeah.
double
This is
story alert.
Probably I've told this probably more than just once before. So I ran downstairs.
You've told it once
looked-
this year.
Yeah. In the last 10 episodes, probably.
It's a great story, though. It really
enjoy it.
is moments like that when you kind of form your musical identity.
I mean, I have trouble thinking of a more pivotal musical moment for me, other than like discovering the Smiths was key.
That's the moment
Key for
when
me.
you're like, this is my personality.
Yeah,
This is
it
everything
really
that
did.
I care
It like
about.
set me on a totally new path in life.
Was it the Smiths? This is going to be a stupid question, and I should know the answer to this. Was it the Smiths before Oasis?
Mm-hmm.
They were around the same time, but
I knew who Oasis was.
you just didn't have your
Wasn't super into it.
full-on
Yeah.
boner for them yet.
Yeah, so it was the Smiths, and then that grew naturally into Oasis.
So then you also had my favorite guitar at the time, which was a Starcaster. Just because Johnny Greenwood played a Starcaster on like 2 Radiohead songs.
Yeah, I got that because I found it at Spotlight Music and it was pretty cheap. I could afford it, and I love Starcasters too because of
and then you got rid of it.
Yeah, I had it for a number of years and then I ended up selling it. I just wasn't playing it a lot.
Yeah,
it
they're
just
pretty
didn't
big
fit my style.
and heavy.
Yeah,
but they're very sexy.
it's cool. I sometimes regret selling it. I would love to play that right now.
One. You could get the Tom DeLonge one. There's a Tom DeLonge Starcaster now.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's funny. I actually have like spending money now, and I have
Don't
not
want
bought a
guitars.
guitar. Yeah, I don't. I'm happy with the collection I have. Not that I even have a collection. I have like
You have
2 guitars.
2 guitars?
3.
What's the third?
I got a Les Paul.
I know about the Les Paul.
I got a Telecaster. You've probably seen the Telecaster. It's a yellow Tele, American Standard. The Tele's
Not
really
for
sick.
a really long time.
I played that one in Savage Cabbage a lot. And then I got the Jag.
The Jag's cool.
Yeah. I love playing the
White
Jag.
guitars are the best ones.
They are. Yeah. We're white guitar supremacists.
It's like white guitar, white cars, which I learned from my dad, but
white cars are good?
I've just come to really think that white cars look the best. Like, if you had, like...
I like a good cream.
4 different color, like, Subaru Crosstreks.
Yeah.
If you had a white one, a black one, a blue one, and like a gray or a cream or something like that. I feel like the metallic white always looks like the best to me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's hard to keep clean.
It is very hard to keep clean.
But that's part of the...
I feel like I've come to realize almost any vehicle is really hard to keep clean, except
is.
for like a gold vehicle.
Well, I have a blue Subaru for the listener, and that color of blue just does not show dirt unless it's like actual like mud stuck to the vehicle. But
and like I feel like my car does show dirt pretty quickly. Like I can see water spots on it because it's just like darker.
Right. Yeah, you'd think brown would be good, but it has to be, dirt varies in color, turns out.
Yeah, I think it's because it is brown. You can see the slight variation in the browns.
Yeah.
And also, I've always thought my car's more of a green than a brown.
Really?
Yeah, I
I'll have
know.
to look at
I'm
it more
definitely in the
closely.
minority there. The paint coat is pyrite mica, so it's supposed to be
Pyrite mica.
like a fool's gold, earthy green brown
It's very earthy.
mixture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Made me see that. Anyways,
The Smiths.
the Smiths. We get down car.
I'm doing a great job.
I haven't even been
I
thinking about
haven't
it.
even been trying.
We get down car rabbit holes a lot on this podcast, weirdly. We end up talking
We
about
should do a car
not
segment.
the cars, which we can also talk
Just
about
like
the
our
cars
cars.
sometimes, but our cars, our vehicles,
Yeah.
our automobiles.
A car segment would be fun.
Like
You're not like
a
a
weekly
big-
one. I'm not a big
weekly
car
one,
guy.
like once every 6
Quarter?
months. Just be like, here's a cool car. But honestly, now that I say that out loud, I cancel it. Let's
It's
not
the
do
worst
that.
idea I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Easily. Yeah, so I ran downstairs after seeing Johnny Marr and Jules Holland, dug through my dad's CD collection, found a CD called The Sound of the Smiths. It's like kind of their best stuff compilation album. Immediately took it, imported it into my iTunes on my computer, and did not stop listening to it for probably an entire year. I remember that was near the summer. That might have been during the summer, or it was like late spring. And that summer we were taking a bunch of road trips.
It's just like, what is going on in your brain at that time when that is what grabs you? Because for me, I was into angry shit and heavy shit, which I think kind of makes sense when you're in high school and you're like, "Arr." And then like everyone else that I knew was into like fucking bullshit pop. Like no one that I knew was into the shit that you were into at that specific time.
Other than like what grabbed me initially was the sound of the guitar, and it was the coolest sounding guitar. I've never heard anyone play like that before. So that's what grabbed me initially, and then it was the melancholy of the lyrics. I think, you know, I was kind of in my depressed teenager phase, and the lyrics and the dramaticism, the romanticism, the, like I said, melancholy of the lyrics and the vibes of the songs. It's the first time, probably the first time I like really connected with lyrics, like paid attention to lyrics and found humor in the lyrics, and it just came to mean a lot to me. So yeah, that summer we took a few road trips, like long road trips, and I just listened to the Smiths on repeat, like the sound of the Smiths album over and over and over again. And just learned everything I could about them. In my free time, I was just like watching music videos or interviews of the Smiths, and you know, looking up pictures of Johnny Marr. And I just thought, like, as a band, they looked so cool, and the way they performed was amazing. Their stage presence, the way Morrissey flung around flowers, and such a sexy man. And yeah, I was just fully obsessed, and I really have been ever since. The Smiths are like one of the few bands that I was really into in my high school years that have not left the musical zeitgeist for me, or like have not ever not been heavy in my rotation. So yeah, that's my history with the Smiths. I'm going to talk a little bit about the background.
Okay,
for the
first
listener.
Though, shit. Never mind. Keep talking. I forgot what I was gonna say. It was a real thing. I'm gonna try to think of what it was.
Try to remember. So as is becoming tradition, I'm gonna read a little bit.
Oh, I remember. Sorry.
Just are you trying to derail?
No, no. It's just like a quick aside.
You're being very disruptive.
It's a quick aside, a genuine question. How much of Morrissey's like shtick in the 80s do you think he owes like directly to David Byrne? Because I've always like kind of felt like there's a lot of shared things going on between the two of them. Not necessarily
really
like musically, but just
Byrne
like conceptually and as a front man. And even like image-wise, like Morrissey in the 80s, he was trying to be like, I'm a nerd, like I'm a little goofball, like not taking shit too seriously, and also like trying to, I think, downplay like he was trying to like counter the like the hair metal thing of the 80s and like the glam rock and all that shit by being like super authentic and like not trying to like put on a look or like be inorganic by any means. And I feel like because David Byrne like ironically played off of a lot of that glam shit that was happening in the 80s, but not like super, it was all super tongue-in-cheek. And that wound up kind of being Morrissey's thing, and the Smiths was like, I'm tongue-in-cheek, like everything's dry. Everything is commentary, but everything's like also super dry, and like you really have to like dig deep to like find like double entendres. And so I just have always felt like Morrissey was riding the coattails of like the David Byrne thing in the 80s.
So I've read Morrissey's biography. I've read other books written about Morrissey.
Morrissey's never gonna say he fucking took influence from anybody.
I know. I've read, or I've watched several Morrissey documentaries and Smith's documentaries. David Byrne has never come up, but there is an established track there where he could have been influenced because he was obsessed with the New York Dolls and the punk scene in New York in the 70s. So, of course, Talking Heads were prevalent in the late 70s in New York. So I'm sure he was aware of the Talking Heads. Probably
drew influence.
Yeah. If not directly, and is just too afraid to admit
too much of a stupid loser.
Yeah.
What is with that generation of musicians just being like, yeah, I don't have influences. Like, it was all me. Like, I did everything myself. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of them. Johnny Marr is not afraid to talk about who influences him,
and even the people from before the 80s aren't afraid to.
Yeah.
It's really like an 80s thing.
There's this hilarious interview where it was a TV interview in the early 80s, and George Michael and Morrissey are on the show, and it is the most unbearably British sad sop interview. You've just those two guys trying to talk about music while trying to stay cool and aloof. It's really insane and horrible to watch, but in a great way.
It's pretty hard to watch almost anybody do that.
Yeah, very pretentious. I
always
fully
will come off as
understand the Morrissey
pretentious.
hate. I think to be honest, I think I did kind of like hate Morrissey a little bit from the jump, but in a way that like I love to hate him. Like, you know, it's one of those relationships where I
Like
get
Bono.
pleasure. Yeah, exactly. Like Bono. I get pleasure out of him driving me crazy a little bit. I'm like even looking at his face right now in this picture I have him on the Wikipedia. I'm just kind of like, oh, dude. But
Don't punch your computer.
Yeah.
Resist the urge. Sit on your hands.
I literally am. So yeah, does that answer your question about
Yeah.
David Byrne?
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess so. I can't be the only one that's thought that.
No, you can't be. I never thought about that. But good question. So, the Smiths, for people who don't know anything about them, were an English rock band formed in Manchester, England in 1982, composed of Morrissey.
Who the fuck's gonna listen for this long and
not
not know
know,
who the
true.
Smiths is and then wait around?
Just the whole
to be
time,
oh,
dude. Like,
well,
I
guess-
can't wait till they actually talk about who these guys are. You're right. I should just skip all this.
No,
but I was
no,
just
no,
gonna
no,
mention
no.
mention the members.
Yeah.
So it's Morrissey, vocals, Johnny Marr, guitar, obviously, Andy Rourke, rest in peace, bass, and Mike Joyce, drums.
Andy Rourke is a fucking badass bass player.
He is indeed. So Morrissey and Marr were the powerhouse of the band, the songwriting duo, kind of a modern day for their day, Lennon and McCartney. They were the hottest songwriting duo in
When
England at the
comparisons
time.
like that get made, I just want to punch you in the fucking face.
I think it's a fair comparison.
How?
Just the it's a classic pair of songwriters.
When Paul
like,
McCartney dies, there's gonna be like hologram concerts, and when Morrissey dies, there's gonna be like they're gonna have to like protect his grave from like
Dude.
grave pissers and shit.
Do you understand how much the country of Mexico loves Morrissey?
Yeah, that's true. It's interesting. He does do very well in the Central American.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of
hologram, a lot of 80s in Central America. They love Joy Division. They love the Smiths. They love Depeche Mode. They love all
Cure.
that new wave. They love the Cure. All that new wave stuff.
They also love like desert rock and shit, like Queens of the Stone Age and like.
True. They love good music.
Yeah.
I always love watching festivals in Central or South America. The crowds just go insane.
They're always so
It's like
big.
football crowds,
Yeah.
like soccer crowds, just going nuts.
Mhm.
So yeah, they signed to Rough Trade. So it formed in '82. Signed to Rough Trade Records in 1983 and released their first album in 1984. Part of the thing that's cool to me about the Smiths is they were only active for a very short amount of time, even shorter than the Beatles, and still managed to produce a ton of influential and, earth-shattering music in that time span. So they formed in '82,
Earth shattering.
released their first album in '84, and then broke up in 1987.
We had to
and
glue
between
the
then,
Earth back together.
truly, I mean, they're still trying to repair the Earth.
How do you think Pangea got separated? It was because of the
The
Smiths.
Smiths. Yeah, we were a single continent until the Smiths. So, should I go through? Here's my thing with Smiths.
Go through the breakup.
Okay, you want to get to the good part where they
Yeah.
end and never make music together
yeah.
again.
I think it needs to be known why specifically they broke up.
Okay. I'll talk about some of the albums in detail. We'll go back after I talk about the breakup. But the thing about the Smiths with me, they undoubtedly have some great records. Like one of them made the Apple Music Top 100, which was The Queen is Dead. Me is Murder is another classic album. But to me, the Smiths have always been more of a singles band than an album band.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way I got into them was just a compilation of singles, and like a lot like one of their like classic albums isn't an album. It's just like a compilation of the singles like they recorded before they put out their first album, The Smiths.
Mm-hmm.
But
Which was kind of the thing that was going on in the 80s.
true. True.
You were either making like super in-depth conceptual shit, or you were doing like singles.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'll read. So you want to jump to the breakup in 87. I'll read a little bit from the Wikipedia. Despite their continued success, tensions emerged within the band. Marr was exhausted and took a break in June 1987 just because in that 5-year span, they were doing nothing but touring and writing albums. So it was a super packed 5 years.
And was this because of label obligations, presumably? Like, did they owe the label a certain amount of records?
I don't know what their contract was like. That's a good question.
Okay.
Maybe we'll find it in here. He felt that the break was negatively perceived by the bandmates, and there was already growing tensions. Like, Morrissey was really becoming a dick, hard to work
early
with.
on.
And it was one of those cases where, like, kind of like Jim Morrison and the Doors, where like people were in Morrissey's ear being like, "You don't need the band, you're the star." It was less so with the Smiths because I think a lot of like anyone who was worth their salt knew that Johnny Marr was a certified genius.
Well, and I also think that to a certain extent that must happen with every artist that's breaking. There's always going to be people in everyone's ear being like, "Oh, you could totally
go
this
solo."
shit.
Yeah,
but like only a certain type of artist really listens to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
the dickish kind.
Someone who already has a huge ego.
Someone who's
Because
already
I'll do
yeah.
like Jim Morrison. Obviously, a character. You can say a lot of negative things about Jim Morrison, but in his defense, he was always like, "Nah, man, it's the Doors. Like, they're the dudes." So he knew what was up. So in July, he left the group, Johnny Marr, because he erroneously believed an NME article titled "Smiths to Split" was planted by Morrissey. The article, written by Danny Kelly, alleged that Morrissey disliked Marr working with other musicians, and that Marr and Morrissey's personal relationship had reached a breaking point. Because Marr was getting hit up at the time to do like a lot of collabs, worked with the Talking Heads. He was working with what's his name, Matt. Oh, come in a second. From the band The. You ever listen to The?
Not really.
I think you'd like The.
I think so too.
Some cool The albums.
You know what we should do is after we shoot these episodes, we should go in and fuck the Wikipedia pages up so that if people want accurate information, they literally have to listen to podcadzo.
Yeah. That's a great idea. We'll become the only reliable source. Only because we had just read the Wikipedia before we ruined it. Yeah.
Completely purposely fucked it up.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Marr contacted NME to explain that he had not left the band due to personal tensions, but because he wanted wider musical scope. The former Easterhouse guitarist Ivor Perry was brought in to replace Marr, which, man, that was a dark period.
Dark time. Yeah.
Pretty
I'm
funny.
sure if you were a Smiths fan at that time, you were just like, what the fuck?
They recorded material with him, which was never released. He mostly he appeared on. I think they did like a Top of the Pops with him playing, and he obviously did not work in the band.
He was not well received.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, after that, tensions just grew between the band. Where stuff really got crazy with the Smiths breakup is the royalties dispute. How much do you know about that? I was going to bring this up when I was.
That's what I was going for.
That's what you're going for.
Yeah, I honestly was. I don't know if I ever knew that about the article thing dropping.
Yeah, it was one of those people. I mean, I guess
so.
It's
Marr
the way
technically
for
left first.
Marr technically left first. Yeah,
because I knew. So I knew that other guitarist did Top of the Pops because obviously it was filmed and it's a thing that's watched. But I always assumed Morrissey kicked Johnny Marr out because I also heard that Morrissey at that point was basically just like, Johnny Marr's a fucking asshole and I hate him.
Yeah, there was a ton of stuff in the. It's sad. It's like something that happens a lot with music, especially in the UK. The press is so crazy in the UK that they just love planting band drama and really crafting a band breakup.
They're
the
original
putting articles in there all the time.
Clickbaiters.
Same thing happened with Oasis. 10 years later.
Although the common thread between those is that the people in the bands are also crazy.
Yes. There's already a lot of tension in the band.
Yeah.
So the royalties dispute, this gets really crazy. Morrissey and Marr each took 40% of the Smiths' recording and performance royalties. They were the primary songwriters, allowing 10% to Joyce and Rourke. So not a lot. Again, Mike Joyce is the drummer. Andy Rourke is the bass player. As Joyce's barrister, which is lawyer, later argued in court, Joyce and Rourke were treated as session musicians, as readily replaceable as the parts in a lawnmower. In March 1989, Joyce and Rourke started legal proceedings against Morrissey and Marr. They argued that they were equal partners in the Smiths and were each entitled to 25% share of the band's profits on all activities other than songwriting and publishing. Rourke, who was in debt, settled quickly for a lump sum of £83,000, which is equivalent to $260,000 and some change in today's money. And 10% of royalties, renouncing all further claims. So Andy Rourke settled. I know Johnny Marr and Andy Rourke stayed close buddies through the end of Andy Rourke's life. So no hard feelings there, at least between Johnny Marr and Andy Rourke. Joyce continued with the action, however, which reached the High Court of Justice, almost like our Supreme Court in the U.S. And the whole court case here had so much press surrounding it. It was a huge deal at this time in the late 80s. And this went well into the 90s too, because when it went to this High Court of Justice, this was already in 1996. Morrissey and Marr had accepted the previous year that Joyce and Rourke were partners, but whether Joyce was entitled to a quarter of the profits arising out of the activities other than songwriting or publishing of the Smiths remained contentious. Morrissey and Marr, who were represented separately at the trial, insisted that the royalty split had been explained to Rourke and Joyce, though they were no longer sure when. Additionally, this agreement was only discussed verbally and it was never legally written on paper. I'll skip ahead. After a 7-day hearing, Judge Weeks found in favor of Joyce. And there was a lot of controversy here because it was Morrissey was so hated by the press, and he was always hated by like kind of straight edge British dudes. Like he was seen as a poofter. He was vegetarian and very anti-meat. He was a very people hated.
He also
Morrissey
made that
in
his
England.
entire thing, though.
He did, yeah. No, he wasn't doing himself any favors. He was a hard guy to like, as we've said. But I remember watching like footage of the court case and stuff, and it was very obvious that the court and the judge in particular had it out for Morrissey. So it wasn't really a surprise that they ruled against Morrissey in this case.
But also, it kind of sounds like, I mean, if there was never like a paper agreement about the split of it, then it kind of sounds like Joyce deserved it a little bit because he was in the band the whole time, and to get 10% of like almost a decade of work is like kind of insulting. Yes. And it makes it their whole legacy seem like it was a cash grab.
Yeah. No, it's a very unfortunate ending. So they found in favor of Joyce, ordering that he receive around $1 million in back royalties and 25% henceforth. So huge win.
Pretty good win.
The judge also gave character assessments. Joyce and Rourke, who gave evidence in Joyce's support, impressed him as straightforward and honest, whereas Morrissey appeared devious, truculent, and unreliable, where his own interests were at stake. And Marr was willing to embroider his evidence to a point where he became less credible. The judge also said that Marr was probably the most intelligent of the four, and that Rourke and Joyce were unintellectual. Morrissey said in an interview 8 months later, "The court case was a potted history of the life of the Smiths. Mike Joyce, talking constantly and saying nothing. Andy, unable to remember his own name. Johnny, trying to please everyone and consequently pleasing no one. And Morrissey, under him referring to himself in the third person, and Morrissey under the scorching spotlight in the dock being drilled. How dare you be successful? How dare you move on? To me, the Smiths were a beautiful thing, and Johnny left it, and Mike has destroyed it." So after all this ugliness, no chance ever.
And
of the
Morrissey
Smiths
taking no credit
reuniting.
for any of it at all. Just being like, yeah, it was everyone else's fault except for me. I was fine.
So, right after the breakup, Morrissey and Marr launched into solo careers. Well, Morrissey wouldn't do a solo career for a while, actually, but he did a bunch of other cool stuff. I'm sorry, Johnny Marr didn't launch into a solo career, but he did other cool stuff. He's very responsible, he's crucial in the success of Oasis.
Another really horrible thing that he did for the world.
He played with Modest Mouse, which was rad.
Starting to redeem himself.
Has a very cool solo career. Produced some cool records. Do you ever listen to the Cribs?
Yeah, a little bit.
That Man's Needs, Woman Needs, whatever. That album Johnny Marr produced. I love that album. It's a great,
cool.
Great album. Anyways, so we're going in a funny order here. We talked about the formation a little bit. Just talked about the breakup. Let's go back into the middle years now here.
Do we have to?
Yes, we have to. So the first,
We have to talk about the actual music.
we have to talk about the music now. So the first Smiths, how they first got on the radar was with a song called Hand in Glove, which was a single they recorded. It was one of the first songs they wrote. So they were signed to Rough Trade. They recorded it themselves, approached Rough Trade with the demo. Rough Trade agreed to release it as a single. I think it kind of floundered a little bit as a single. I know they eventually went on John Peel and did John Peel sessions on BBC Radio. Those are really famous recordings now of the John Peel session. They did Hand in Glove there, and I think that's kind of when it started to take off as a single, when they kind of got some success. So they did some more singles there. This Charming Man, What Difference Does It Make, were all released. This is a different version of This Charming Man, though, from what we know today. Have you ever listened to like the original This Charming Man? It just shows you how important like the small nuances of mixing are. It just mixed so differently, and I think it's probably a different guitar take too, but it sounds so different. It's still a good song, but it does not sound like the hit that we know it as today. Let me stop there. Actually, do you have a favorite Smith song?
No, fuck them all. They're all bad.
Jesus, Julie. How about one you like a little bit?
Let me look.
Okay. You don't like
Nope.
What Difference Does It Make?
No.
You don't like...
Oh.
I mean, This Charming Man, dude, that's an amazing song.
No, it's not. Why?
You don't like How Soon Is Now? You have to like How Soon Is Now. The Tremolo.
Yeah,
that's an amazing song.
Probably the best one that I could think of.
So, had some Smiths there. Or, I'm sorry, Smiths. Had some singles there. This Charming Man and What Difference Does It Make reached 25 and 12 on the UK singles chart. They kind of became like critic darlings here, and especially like in the college. This was kind of like the start of college radio. And of course, like college kids latched onto the Smiths right away. They were like known as very intellectual band.
Yeah.
Very, very college radio
prissy,
esque. Exactly.
Fucking assholes.
Exactly. Do you have your answer on favorite Smith songs?
How Soon Is Now, probably.
How Soon Is Now? Okay.
Yeah.
So in February 1984, they released their first album, which is self-titled The Smiths. Now, as far as debut albums go, it's not bad. It's really not a great showing of the Smiths, though. And the album didn't do too well. It was controversial because Morrissey was already like controversial in the press as a figure. People were learning who Morrissey was, and people had a very adverse reaction to him right away, which is just so funny. Where like, and it was one of those things too, where like teenage girls loved Morrissey, which made guys like blokes in England, especially fathers, hate him even more.
Yeah.
Because like their daughters were obsessed with him.
Well, and it made like younger dudes hate him too, because they're just like, he's just a pretty boy.
Yeah, exactly. So So, Reel Around the Fountain and The Hand That Rocks the Cradle were met with controversy, with some tabloid newspapers alleging the songs were suggestive of pedophilia, a claim strongly denied by the group. More controversy followed with the song Suffer Little Children because of the Moors murders. Do you know about the Moors murders at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so famous case of these serial killers in Manchester. It's really, really horrible case who were killing and burying children on their land. This caused an uproar after the grandfather, one of the murdered children, heard the song on a pub jukebox and felt the band was trying to commercialize the murders. After meeting with Morrissey, he accepted that the song was a sincere exploration of the impact of the murders. So, a little bit of Morrissey's defense here.
In hindsight, if it was today's day and age, you'd have to like reach out to every single person involved, like all the families.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, in today, yes, I guess you would have to do that for a single, but also like we're so jaded now with like we've been exploiting murders and crimes for years now for content, where I think it would just totally go under the radar.
I just mean as an artist to like not get somehow retroactively in trouble.
Yes. Yeah, you would have to clear it. Yeah, true. So in end of 1984, the year ended with the release of their first compilation album, Hatful of Hollow.
Big farts.
Big
fart sounds.
Big farts from the stew. So
from
I really,
my bunghole.
Yeah, I think Hatful of Hollow is a better representation of like where the Smiths were at this point, and like I wish Hatful of Hollow was the debut instead of the Smiths self-titled. It's it's a better compilation of songs. Like even though it's not an album, it's a compilation. Like it's not like the Smiths, the album is a concept album necessarily. So it's it's still just singles there, sort of.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hatful of Hollow is very cool. It's just a compilation of the singles they released beforehand. It has the Peel sessions and like other live sessions on it, and after I remember Sound of the Smiths, the first compilation I listened to, Hatful of Hollow was like what I went back to, and that was my next album I played on repeat. 1985, the next year, they released Meat is Murder, which is like
stupidest album title of all time.
No, one of the best album titles. Meat is Murder and The Queen is Dead, 85, 86. Two amazing albums, two amazing album titles.
Stupid album titles.
No.
The Queen is Dead is a pretty good album title.
Mm-hmm. And true now, they predicted it. What did the Smiths know?
Dude, I could have sworn she was immortal. I think we were all starting to think she was.
Smiths really called it.
I bet Morrissey had something to do with her death.
Probably just by being annoying and that. Probably just ate away at her.
Every day he left her a voicemail that was like, die!
Hello, Your Majesty. So in early 1985, the Smiths released Meat is Murder. It's an album. It's not a concept album, but it has a point. The songs are more political. They fit a theme.
The songs are still kind of like all over the place, though.
In what way? Like thematically?
Like sonically.
Sonically? No way. It's a tight album sonically.
Nah.
When was the last time you listened through Meat is Murder all the way?
I did listen to it not too long ago. Whenever the last time we talked about the Smiths, I listened to Meat is Murder because it is probably the one I like the most.
Here, the track list is insane. The Headmaster Ritual, an awesome opener. Rush Home Ruffians, I Want the One I Can't Have, and It's Driving Me Mad. What She Said, and That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore. That's side one. And then side two is Nowhere Fast, Well I Wonder, Barbarism Begins at the Home, Meat is Murder. Fun fact about this album. We saw Morrissey live in a concert, Julie and I did, at Red Rocks. He played Meat is Murder. Behind him was a absolutely appalling compilation of slaughterhouse footage. And Julia became a vegetarian after that show. Wow. I was already on the vegetarian train.
Yeah, you're already like, I'm better than everybody else because I don't eat animals.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. It was it's one of my favorite album covers of all time. Do you remember what the album cover looks like for Meat is Murder?
Isn't it just like green text, army man?
Yeah, I think it's a Vietnam soldier
Yeah,
who
it's
on
a
his
Vietnam
helmet
vet.
wrote Meat is Murder.
A Vietnam boy.
No, boy. So, very important album, solidified the Smiths as, not only a singles group, but someone who could produce.
Not only as bad, but also lame. Not only are they untalented,
no, they
but
said,
also
wow,
they have
not only
bad
can
ideas.
these whippersnappers write a catchy song, but they can make a poignant political point and put it on an album.
So how much connection do you draw between Morrissey and Julian Casablancas? None whatsoever.
None. Very little. Why? Do you?
They're just both
There's people
insufferable.
you hate. I do draw a connection there. People I adore that Julian cannot stand. That's my connection between Morrissey and Casablancas.
I can stand Casablancas.
Yeah. Casablancas, dude, he's the man.
He's cool as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he were here right now, we'd be
On our knees.
We'd be on our knees, no doubt. We'd be giggling like schoolgirls. All right. Followed up by The Queen is Dead. So this is the one that was on the Apple Music Top 100. The
worst one.
No, it's not at all.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Queen
They're all
is-
the worst.
The Queen is Dead is the first Smiths album I got on vinyl, which makes it important to me because it was just like,
A milestone.
yeah, and like the only record I listened to for years.
You only bought one record for
I
like
had,
6
I
years.
had The Queen is Dead and Love Supreme, and that's all I listened to. Oh, and Interpol.
Turn on the bright lights, or
Yeah, Turn on the bright lights.
do you want to know what my first record was?
No, I want
Okay.
to talk about the Smiths.
Let's move on then.
No, what was your first record? I'm just joking.
No,
Let me guess.
We'll talk about it later.
Let me guess.
I'll give you a hint. It rhymes with nice.
Thrice.
Yes.
If you had given me a second longer, I might have guessed Thrice.
Which record, though? You don't even know what they're fucking called. We only talk about the bands you like. When's the Thrice episode?
Was it the Ambulance one?
No.
That's the only Thrice album I really know.
Yeah, it was Visu. The one after.
Oh, I know
Arson
Visu.
Ambulance.
Yeah, I remember Visu. I've listened to Visu.
It's a very good record.
Yeah, it's not.
It's
It's no. The Queen is Dead.
Yeah, it's no Me is Murder, which is
Yeah.
way more creative and they put way more effort into it or whatever.
Track list for The Queen is Dead. The Queen is Dead. Opening title. I love
What
how
if
it
track
opens.
2 is
It's-
like, just kidding, she's still alive.
She's still alive. Actually, I love that as an album opener because it starts with a like it just sounds like a pub recording of a bunch of English people drunkenly singing "Take Me Back to Dear Old Blighty," which is an old English song, and then it transitions really coolly into The Queen is Dead. It's
Do you think
great
they're
guitar
English?
riff. They're very English.
Wow.
Indeed. Frankly, Mr. Shankly, one of the sickest bass parts of all time. I Know It's Over, devastating song. Never Had No One Ever, devastating song. Cemetery Gates, upbeat song with very morose lyrics. Cemetery Gates is one of the greatest achievements of pop music in my mind. That song is absolutely brilliant. Side 2 starts with Big Mouth Strikes Again, The Boy with a Thorn in His Side, which is one of the all-time Smith singles. Vicar in a Tutu. There Is a Light That Never Goes Out,
That song's
which
pretty
is Julia and mine's, as cheesy as this is our song.
good. That's your song?
That's our song.
Wow.
Yeah. Because we started dating, and like I remember I was like, have you ever heard The Queen is Dead by the Smiths? We listened to this album, and she really liked that song. I love that song too.
Damn, that was probably such a painful first date.
That was not the first date.
Oh.
It honestly could have been. I probably talked about the Smiths on our first date. And then it closes with Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others. Funny, I Like,
have you ever seen the Jules Holland from like 15 years ago?
yeah. Do you know who Jules Holland is, by the way? Funny thing, side note about Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others. Have you ever seen the Noisy series, Noisy, the YouTube channel? It's like a Vice sub-channel about music.
I don't think so.
There's a show on there called The British Masters where this English music journalist, I forget his name, interviews like a bunch of really important. That's good viewing, dude. It's like Damon Albarn has been on there, Paul Simonon has been on there, Mark, what's the dude from The Fall? Mark. Gotta look this up.
I wish I could tell you.
Fall band. It's just bothering me. I can't come up with Marky Smith.
Marky Smith.
E. Smith.
Marky Smith.
I should remember it's Smith. How did I forget Smith?
It's a bad look.
But he had Johnny Marr on, and it's so fun. At one point, he's just like, "Did it bother you what Morrissey did with Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others?" Because it is like one of the most brilliant guitar parts of all time. And then Morrissey just put these really sarcastic lyrics about girls being fat over it. And Marr had a very diplomatic answer. He was like, no, that was, his art. That's why he worked so well. It was the combination. But I do see where he's coming from. That is a theme on a lot of Smith songs. I like being a Smith fan. That's what I appreciate about it, is the contrast between Marr's writing and Morrissey's lyrics. But I can see where he's coming from, where like it's amazing guitar music, and then Morrissey will come in with some sardonic, sarcastic
some stupid
lyrics
bullshit that
some
actually
people,
pretty much means nothing.
Naive people think don't serve the song well, but true heads know that it's...
I mean, it serves the song well because the song had no purpose anyway. It's not like...
Anyways, after...
like, the frontman gets to decide what the song's about, really, like 95% of the time.
Yeah. You're damn right. And then in 87, they released their last album, Strange Ways. Here We Come. And break up pretty much immediately after that.
For the greater good of humanity.
Not at all. In that time, I mean, I've talked about it before. The Enemy, a few other publications in England commonly rate the Smiths as the most influential band of all time.
They all say that 9/11 wouldn't have happened if the Smiths wouldn't have broken up.
So
he also secretly eats meat.
Yeah. That would be
be
the most damning thing anyone could ever come up with.
If there's like one really famous person who would like sue two dudes who have like nothing for like defamation, it would be Morrissey. So we better be careful.
True. Famously litigious Morrissey. Let me talk a little bit about solo careers. I've talked about it a little bit already. So Morrissey immediately goes from the end of the Smiths into a very successful solo career and establishes himself as Morrissey, as the Morrissey we all know and love today.
We all
Bit
love
of a
him,
stretch.
except for like a shitload of people that think he's kind of a fucking scumbag.
Do you want to talk about? Let's quickly. We're running out of time here, but Morrissey
feels like it's been
recent
6 hours.
I mean, other than the stuff we've talked about already with him being a controversial figure, he did in recent years
become like a MAGA Republican.
He started to empathize with the Conservative Party in the UK, which, part of his stance in the early days was he was like the most liberal, anti-conservative dude ever. I remember like one day he wore a pin that like had nationalist connotations on it.
Yep.
He's made some xenophobic comments.
He's had like xenophobic stage props and stuff at shows.
He's made comments of like, he's like, there's nothing wrong with white people only wanting to be around white people and blacks only wanting to be around blacks.
There's nothing wrong with thinking that the Jews are inferior.
That's the natural order of things. you know,
There's
he's made
nothing wrong with thinking that Muslims are like dirty people.
he's
He actually did say shit like that.
No, I know.
That's his opinion, not mine. Don't take that out of context.
He's canceled a bunch of shows, like we alluded to last. Like, I think people perceive him as like not caring about his fans or being disrespectful towards his fans.
I think if there's like one thing that like the common good, like people that don't know Morrissey or the Smiths, like if there's one thing that they would like know about him, if you just were like name one fact about Morrissey, that 90% of people would be like, oh, he's that dude that like cancels all of his shows, right?
Yeah.
That's like the thing that he's the most known for. Like, it's kind of crazy too. Music publications give him more shit for like that shit than like the xenophobic shit, which is kind of crazy to me. But whatever, that's the world we live in. Xenophobia is just commonplace now. Always was. Who are we kidding?
So that's the stuff with Morrissey. Johnny Marr, on the other hand, has just become even more of the man since the Smiths broke up. He like, it wasn't during the Smiths, but like pretty soon after the Smiths, he didn't really have a drug or drinking problem, but you know, he partied like a rock star for sure. He like crashed cars into walls and shit like that. But he became totally sober. I think he was in his like 40s when he became sober, but he like started running marathons, became super into running, super healthy lifestyle. He, after the Smiths, formed the supergroup Electronic. Do you ever listen to Electronic?
A little bit.
Electronic has Bernard Sumner in it from New Order and Joy Division, and Pet Shop Boys' Neil Tennant. So it was an absolute supergroup. Electronic, that album that has what's the big Electronic single? Sorry, let me look this up.
Getting Away with It.
Getting Away with It. Thank you. Classic song. He worked as a session musician with artists including The Pretenders, Brian Ferry, Pet Shop Boys, Billy Bragg, Black Grape. I've talked about Black Grape. Fucking love that album. Talking Heads, Crowded House, and Beck. And then did stuff with Oasis, obviously. Did stuff with Modest Mouse, produced that Cribs record, and then has had a super dope solo career since then. Like the Johnny Marr solo albums are really, really remarkable, in my opinion. And he's really like, it's so funny because everything Morrissey has done, he's gone down some different avenues, to be fair to Morrissey, but most of Morrissey's stuff is just trying to sound a lot like the Smiths, like the session musicians he gets, or the songwriters in his bands. So I was just like, all right, well, let's just copy Johnny Marr as much as we can and try to make this like a Johnny Marr riff, and you'll sing over it because that's what works. But Johnny Marr has
tried different shit.
Yeah. Like the sound of his solo albums, well, it's so obviously Johnny Marr, is miles away from what the Smiths sounded like. It's like a much heavy. It's not like heavy, but more rockish, distorted, alternative sounding music.
Yeah. And most of what makes Morrissey's solo shit good is really just the musicians he has around him and the songwriters that he has contributing, because he's not really doing that much. He's writing some lyrics that are about some like kind of outdated concepts and principles that nobody really gives a fuck about, especially these days.
Do you like the sound of his voice?
Yeah.
You think he's objectively a good singer?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there we go.
You'll really just take anything you can get, won't you?
I will.
He's objectively a good singer.
Cool.
You know who else was probably objectively a good singer? Fucking Muammar Gaddafi. He could probably sing good.
I think you did let out a little diddle when they stabbed him up the ass. Yeah, so the Smiths have left behind an outstanding legacy. My biggest influence musically, no doubt. They
Johnny Marr
keep
or the Smiths.
The Smiths, yeah,
biggest
ever. ever.
Bigger than Oasis?
Yeah,
Really?
I think so.
Why did it take us so long to do this episode then? You've never really been like, we need to do a Smiths episode until like recently.
Well, no, because it's what I've been saying. There's just I put so much pressure on myself to do the Smiths episode. I was like, I got to just wait until it feels really right.
Okay.
And
so that's why you were like, fuck it.
Yeah, that's why I said fuck it. The
Okay.
Smiths. That's what we're talking about
I thought
today.
you said fuck it because you knew you were going to have to carry the whole episode.
Well, that was probably a little bit of it as well. But yeah, the Smiths pop up in pop culture all the time. Like I feel like every 3 years there's like some reemergence of the Smiths. The movie, what's that movie called? Something Wallflower.
Perks of being a
Perks of being a
Wallflower.
Wallflower.
It's like all Smiths music.
It's all Smiths music.
Yeah.
They love the Smiths in that. So that
Wow,
started.
how fucking original of a concept.
I do remember when that movie came out, I was like worried. I was like, ah, damn it. Now everyone's going to think I like the Smiths because of this movie. Like,
That's what you were
it's
worried
way-
about?
Yeah. Like, I'm not just hopping on the
I'm
Perks of
gonna
being a
have to explain to
Wallflower
people
trend, guys.
that I've liked the Smiths way longer than some shitty movie.
I liked the Smiths way before they became cool for the fourth time. Way
I
after
never knew they
were the-
became cool for a first time.
I think you're going to...
Their whole thing was always like, we're losers. We're just
Okay,
dorks.
here's what I wanted to ask you. It's
If
undeniably
Morrissey
a great
was-
rhythm section.
If me and Morrissey were walking on a bridge together, like if I was on a bridge and then Morrissey was on a bridge, I can't say I wouldn't push him off of it.
I think Morrissey would fuck you up, dude.
Really? He'd
Yeah.
be like, don't touch me. And I'd just be like, bam.
Yeah. I think he'd judo.
And then
judo you. I
he'd
think
let
he'd-
the sharks eat him because he can't hurt animals.
Yeah. He'd be like, oh, such misery and joy. Take me, sharks. Okay, here's what I want to ask you. The Smiths. It's undeniably one of the best rhythm sections of all time.
Yes.
You got to give them that. The combination, and this is what I was going to bring up with the royalties dispute. Although, Morrissey Marr were the songwriting engine of the Smiths,
Yeah.
they would be
Nothing.
nothing without Mike Joyce and Andy Rourke
Specifically
holding
Andy Rourke.
down. Yes,
I think Mike
he's one
Joyce
of the
really
best bass
did-
players of all time.
Yeah, I think Mike Joyce really did what like drummers in the 80s did. There wasn't too much real innovation going on back behind
Yeah.
the old drum kit.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, Andy Rourke honestly just like a fucking virtuoso at the bass. And there's not too terribly many people who really take bass and play it like not like a lead instrument necessarily, but they play it like with greater intention than just being a rhythm section.
Yeah,
And Andy Rourke is like a standout example of that from the 80s.
especially like the style of guitar that Marr plays. Like the instinct for any bass player would be like, all right, I just got to sit back in the pocket
just gotta
and
sit in
let
the
this
pocket.
dude carry it melodically.
There's like counter melody, counterpoint, like
Yeah.
all that.
So
In
well
what
done.
is arguably just kind of like pop music of the 80s.
Yeah, and Andy Rourke just seemed like the man too. He like him and Johnny Marr were just buddies in high school. Johnny Marr's the one who brought him to the band. I'm sure he was a musician, but I don't think he was like a bass player
Sure.
or like a prolific bass player or anything. But he was just one of those dudes like, yeah, I'll play the bass and fucking be the best bass player of all
I'm
time.
just happy to
without
be
even
involved
trying.
with a bunch of dicks.
Yeah,
I just want to surround myself with fucking selfish, arrogant
Yeah.
assholes.
with one of the worst dudes of all time in a lot of people's minds.
It is funny, like, the natural reaction to Morrissey getting famous was people just being like, this dude kind of sucks. Because he does.
Yeah.
He fucking does. Like, you don't have to know a narcissist personally to know that they're a narcissist. Like, there's just a lot of famous people where you get that vibe. And he's one of them for me, where it's just like, there's no one on earth that could convince this dude that he's not the shit. Like, he thinks he is the best, most important figure ever. And he thinks that he has, like, good political influence, that, he can really, like, swing the minds of, like, the youth and the next generation. And it's like, no one takes you seriously because you got famous by being tongue-in-cheek and not taking anything seriously. And then when you got super famous and left the thing that got you famous, you were just like, well, now I'm going to take everything super seriously and just like lecture at people via music for the next 20 years.
Here's a good one-line synopsis of Morrissey. In 2006, after reunion speculation, he said, "I would rather eat my own testicles than reform the Smiths." And that's saying something for a vegetarian. That's the kind of guy we're dealing with here. And it's just so funny to think about Andy Rourke and Mike Joyce in that band. And Johnny Marr, too, like, you know, Johnny Marr was
the judge
like,
calling them non-intellectual.
yeah, but like they were just like English blokes, you know. They liked soccer, they liked drinking beer, they liked chilling. They're like, yeah, we're joining a band, that's cool. And I have to imagine that like after them showing up to the first rehearsal and seeing what Morrissey was like, being like, really, dude, like, can't we just play the tunes, man? And yeah, them just kind of grimacing along through all the Morrissey stuff. It's funny to think about. Yeah, the Smiths.
Are you satisfied?
Yeah.
Can we get back to talking about paint codes now?
Yes. Yeah, let's get back to the
My
car
Volvo
segment.
was ash gold, which was a very common color for that generation of the Volvo, like V70, XC90, that whole platform. But what was cool about the ash gold was that in the sunlight, it gave somewhat of a pearlescent quality. Even though it wasn't pearlescent, it kind of looked like silver in some light and gold in other light.
Wow.
And sometimes it even looked a little green. So,
A little green.
yeah.
I think everything's
And
just
that
green
was
to
pretty
you. I
much
think you have
it,
some
just
sort
a-
of sick color
I
blindness.
love green.
Is that your favorite color?
No, blue is always, I've always said blue is my favorite color, but honestly, like 2 weeks ago, I was thinking maybe green is my favorite color because I wear a lot of green. I have a lot of green shit. Every time I see the color green, I'm just kind of like, oh, like that's nice. I like this.
People always say, oh, first of all, liking green is a sign of a highly intelligent person.
So it must not be my favorite color.
Yeah. I think you just read
I'm
that
just-
somewhere and you're trying to trick people.
I'm just too stupid to know what my own favorite
I
color
like
is.
green too.
Trees are green.
I just think you like it because it's the color of marijuana.
The grass is green. The marijuana that I smoke is not green.
True. People always think blue is my favorite color because they look at me and have a lot of blue shit surrounding me at all times. And maybe
I would guess blue would be one of your favorites.
it's the color of my car. It's the color of my phone. I'm wearing a
You like
blue
dark
shirt
colors
right
in
now.
general.
I do. I like dark colors. But I'd say I like green more than blue. But I know it sounds crazy, but whenever people ask me, my go-to favorite color is yellow.
My favorite color is whatever Morrissey's favorite color is.
Whatever he likes, really. Oh, is that your? Yeah, that's my favorite color too, Morrissey.
Wow,
so
that's crazy.
Yeah, I don't eat meat either.
I forgot my phone number. Can I have yours?
I don't. No, in all honesty, I don't like if I was at a restaurant and Morrissey was there and he was all alone. The restaurant was empty. There was an opportunity to talk
You
to
would
him.
definitely go up to him.
I don't think I would.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to like talk to someone while also having to tuck the boner up into your waistband. It can get pretty awkward.
Speaking of that, real quick, Morrissey had such. You mentioned he was like anti, like hair metal and like he did glam rock. He did like T-Rex. Mark Bolan was like his biggest influence outside of the New York Dolls, and he loved David Bowie and stuff. But yeah, he had like an adverse reaction to like cock rock and just like traditional rock and roll stuff. So much so that he like was asexual. Like that's a huge part of Morrissey's. Like everyone speculated that he was gay, but he said he's just not anything. He said he's just not interested.
I kind of forgot
people.
that he did say that.
He's never been involved romantically with anyone, as far as we know. He's had like him and like Nancy Sinatra have this weird long friendship.
I mean, who needs other people? You can literally just stand in a mirror or stand in front of a mirror, look at yourself. And then just jerk it. Yeah. Especially if you're Morrissey, that's all you need.
Yeah, while singing "The Boy with the Thorn in His Side."
You can think about the 2 good things that you did in your entire life.
Anyways, that's our Smiths episode.
So when did you become vegetarian? And was it just because of like animal cruelty reasons also?
Yeah, animal cruelty. I first became vegetarian
love
when I
the
was
animals?
17. I love animals so goddamn
Every
much.
time
My
you
mom,
see him, you're just like, ah, come here, you little guy.
come here, let me tussle your little head. My mom and sister are both vegetarians. My mom was a vegetarian.
I did not
my
know
whole
your mom
life.
was a vegetarian.
Yeah, she hasn't eaten meat since she was like 15,
Oh,
16.
fuck.
So,
So she just cooks up delicious ass meats for everybody else, and then doesn't
yeah,
eat
yeah.
any
She
of
would
them?
cook meat for us growing up. So yeah, I ate meat growing up. Obviously, my dad is certainly not a vegetarian, staunch carnivore.
Mhm.
But yeah, when I was 17, it was probably honestly the influence of a lot of like musicians too, being like
Not your own mother.
Oh, I know my own mother a little bit too, but yeah, it just felt right to become a vegetarian. So I was one for then, like I didn't eat meat for several years. There was a while in college where I like kind of started to eat chicken every once in a while, just because I had trouble sustaining my myself in
weight?
college.
Yeah.
Yeah, my weight was dropping a lot, and it was obvious I like needed a little bit more protein that I was just unable to get other ways. So
yeah, a lot of vegetarians don't eat very healthy is the thing.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to really still go out of your way.
It took
to
me a
eat
long
healthy.
time. Like I would say I'm a very healthy eater now. But
mean,
I
look
can't
at
even.
you.
No, thank you. I
Cut from stone.
I can't even say I'm a vegetarian right now though, because I have been eating fish again recently. So pescatarian technically.
Yeah, but fish is super good for you.
Yeah, and it's okay to eat fish because they don't have any feelings.
They have less pain receptors than like most plants. So you're actually hurting plants more by being a vegetarian than you are hurting fish by being a pescatarian. But there is a shitload of animal cruelty going on in the fishing business. We cannot fool ourselves.
Definitely, I know. So I think I trick myself and say I only eat very responsibly sourced fish, but I'm sure
you just have to believe. Fish. Yeah, you have to just take other people's word for that and not really like blame yourself too much at the end of the day. Yeah.
I don't. I try as hard as possible to not be a Morrissey style vegetarian where I'm like,
oh, you're not
righteous about it.
No, you're not at all.
And
like fucking Moby. Have you seen Moby's tattoos?
Yeah. No, I really hate that. And like, it's funny when you tell people you're vegetarian, they immediately have you defend it. Kind of like, oh, you don't eat meat. Like, why don't you eat meat?
Yeah.
And just like, oh, dude, I just don't feel like it. Like,
it is.
I don't think I'm saving the world or anything. Like,
it is a rather significant lifestyle choice, just because we do get told for so long that you pretty much have to eat meat to survive.
Yeah.
That to really come to that decision on your own and stick to it, a lot of people are truly challenged by that notion. They're just like, why the fuck are you a vegetarian? Because I mean, even me, I will admit, like, I love meat. I eat meat all the time, every day, multiple times a day. But like, I think I understand like the perspective of like why people choose not to do it, whereas a lot of people that eat meat don't choose to see it. Like, they don't choose to see the other side of it because of like fear mostly.
Yeah, and I think a lot of like expect me to be like self-righteous about it. So they're like, or like for me to,
which a lot of people are.
Definitely.
But also, you can't say that's just a vegetarian thing, because every time someone that eats meat sees a vegetarian and they talk, then the meat eater's like, well, I think that eating meat is better. And then they're like, everyone always thinks that they're just better than the other. So, what's up?
Exactly.
Suck me.
All right. Well, good sode.
Good sode.
Goodbye.
We talked about a really shitty band today.